Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna to everyone. Thank you all for joining today. We'll just start with prayers and then I'll just share my screen. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna. Thank you once again for everyone for joining, and thank you, Prabhu, for giving me an opportunity to share whatever little that I know. I hope to stay within the line of the parampara and repeat what has been spoken by our Purvacharyas. I'm going to just share my screen in a second. I hope. Okay, so can everyone see the screen?
Yes, Mataji. Yeah.
Okay. So today, for the next 20 minutes, we are going to be just discussing about what causes Narada Muni to come and talk to Vyasadeva. So in the previous classes, we have talked about, we have seen how there has been many discussions amongst the sages. And the reason why the sages are discussing, and this is in the dawning of Kali Yuga, is because they can foresee that the humanity is at distress. And just to alleviate and see what can be done about it, the sages are like are starting to talk about the different pastimes and transcendental qualities of the Lord, and that's how the whole Bhagavatam story starts spinning. And today we're going to see how or why does Narada Muni appear in front of Vyasadeva, what causes that to happen. And this has already happened. This is being now discussed in an amalgamation of sages headed by Shaunaka Rishi. So the first title is When Two Exalted Personalities Meet. So what's happening right now is Sutta Goswami is coming and is now conversing with Shaunaka Rishi, and Shaunaka Rishi is now heading this whole commemoration of sages. And the reason why it's important to talk about Sutta Goswami and Shaunaka Rishi is because it's important to know who is qualified for talking about transcendental pastimes of the Lord, such as Bhagavatam itself, and then who can entirely or correctly receive Bhagavatam for what it is. Because we all know that Bhagavatam, it's an Amalam Puranam. It does not have any contamination. It is the ripened fruit of the Vedas itself. It's the essence of Vedas. And it's nothing but the incarnation of the Lord himself. It's Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So then who is qualified to talk about such a transcendental literature? And Prabhupada writes in the purport that there are so many people who just recite Bhagavatam for material benefits or who misinterpret Bhagavatam, and which is why it is important to hear it from the most qualified. It's very, very, very important to learn from the most qualified, speaker. And here, Sutta Goswami is the most qualified because he heard it from Shukadev himself in the in Hastinapur, and now he is going to recite it to Shaunaka Rishi in Naimisharanya. And Shaunaka Rishi's and Sutta Goswami. So when the word Goswami means there are a couple of qualities that makes someone a Goswami. One of the main ones is that they come in the disciplic succession. They do not try to like outdo or outrun the previous acharyas. They do not, misinterpret the meaning. They repeat what the acharyas have said. They are always in line with acharya. They carry the correct meaning, they convey the correct meaning, and they realize the correct meaning. So since he's a Goswami, since he's Sutta Goswami, it is to be understood that he's the most qualified to talk about this transcendental literature. And then Shaunaka Rishi, who's the head of the whole group, he is the congratulator, because he's giving complete respect to Sutta Goswami, and he's completely humbled, and he's seeking the true knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that makes him the perfect listener. He is the leader of the group, and he is the most, and he's very realized. So he has correctly estimated the value of Sutta Goswami. So that makes a perfect listener, a perfect recite a perfect reciter and a perfect listener combination. So that makes Bhagavatam come out in its full essence, because everybody is qualified to like listen from Sutta Goswami. And now they start introducing about Shukadev Goswami. So Shukadeva Goswami, he's the son of Vyasadeva himself, Veda Vyasa, and in fact, Bhagavatam is also called as Shuka Samhita. So it's spoken by Shukadev, and Shuka means parrot. So he's repeating without adding his own meaning. Again, another sign of a transcendentalist. And Prabhupada adds a line where he distinguishes between those who are materially enthralled and those who are spiritually active. And he quotes the Bhagavad Gita verse, which translates to, "What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is the night for the introspective sage." So this is, and the statement stands for itself. And Prabhupada very interestingly distinguishes between how those who are dreaming about those who are very materially active or materially or very materially attached. For them, what is day for them is the night for those who are trying to seek the true spiritual essence, and vice versa. And well, who's Shukadev Goswami? Well, we just saw that, and most of you definitely know who he is. He, right from when he was in the womb of his mother, he was realized. So he just left his home right after he was born. Shukadev Goswami, he, the son of Vyasadeva, he has his only vision is spiritual vision. He does not discriminate anyone at the material level or at a bodily level. And again, quoting the Bhagavad Gita verse, says how a learned man looks upon at a Brahmana, Chandala, and a dog with the same spiritual vision. And Shukadev Goswami, although he was like roaming around, he was a monist and then a transcendentalist. So he was not physically, his appearance was all messy, and he had like hair locks, and he was not dressed. He didn't wear any dress. And by the time he was 16, his body parts were completely grown. And there is this a pastime where he's like passing by a river, and there are apsaras, damsels, bathing in the river, and so they're also not dressed. But then when they look at Shukadev Goswami, they don't feel anything. They are like, yeah, they judge his demeanor to be innocent, so they're not even shy to like cover themselves up or hide themselves up. They are just like doing their own thing. But when Vyasadev follows Shukadev Goswami, and Vyasadev is like their grandfather, they immediately start like dressing up. And then Vyasadev was like bewildered, like, why is this happening? And then Prabhupada says that women who can actually judge these kind of, who can make such judgments, he says that because Vyasadev is a householder, he has to make such bodily discrimination, which makes him, because of which the damsels start covering themselves up, because now they're not comfortable. That's how glorified Shukadev Goswami was. And even when he was seeking alms at the wealthy householders, he would never stay there. So Prabhupada writes that the maximum amount of time that he'll stay there is the amount it takes to milk a cow, which is like 30 minutes. And he's staying there to get alms only because he wants to sanctify their household. There is no other business that Shukadev Goswami has. He's so materially unattached, and later in the session we will see what he does and how he recites Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. And well, what happens is, so this is one of the most like this section really hit me hard, because we all know that Parikshit Maharaj, he gave up his life, whatever he was doing. He had 7 days of due date to like live. So, and what and all did Maharaj Parikshit possess? First of all, he was a great devotee of the Lord. He was protected by the Lord even when he was in his womb and he was attacked by Ashwatthama's Brahmastra. And he was protected by the Lord even when he was in his womb. He was a great emperor and a great householder. He had all the opulences in this world, and of course, he's coming from the great lineage of Pandu dynasty. And even enemies would surrender for their own good, just to protect themselves. They would surrender to Maharaj Parikshit. He was that kind of a powerful, opulent, dominant king, and in his kingdom, there was no miseries. So, and he was very powerful. Prabhupada writes how king is a representative of the Supreme Lord, and and as a duty, the king is supposed to help everyone go back to their godhead. So he was executing such duties very religiously, and so he was very powerful. There was no misery in his land, so nobody would like disobey him. And his kingdom was flourishing. It was flourishing with milk, grains, metal, and natural resources. There was like, if we look at it, look at, okay, we paint a picture of Maharaj Parikshit, it's like, okay, there is nothing wrong in his life. It's like the ideal life. Like this to me, this is like, I cannot ask for anything more than that. Yet, given all these opulences and his power and his realization and his spiritual progress and how he's protected by Krishna, he's just like strong on all aspects, and still he gives up everything just to hear from Maharaj Parikshit. And he knows that he has 7 more days to like live. He could have enjoyed, I would have been like, yeah, I want to go to Disneyland and enjoy my 7 days and eat this and meet these people and take this tour. But he's like, I'm going to leave everything. He gave up everything. Now I need to hear what I need to hear. And that's when Shukadev Goswami comes and he recites the whole Bhagavatam that's coming from Veda Vyasa himself. And Prabhupada says how Sutta Goswami is the right person to answer this, for he's a Parivrajikacharya. And Prabhupada says Parivrajikacharya and Brahmanas have some distinctions. So Brahmanas, they're supposed to recite Vedic mantras and enhance the material benefits that comes from such recitation. Whereas Parivrajikacharyas, they have to pass down the message of the transcendental realization. So Brahmanas, they should be very well trained in order to like recite the mantras perfectly. We have a lot of pastimes where the mantra goes wrong and then everything goes wrong. So it has to be in a certain accent, it has to be in a certain metric pronunciation. People have to be trained very religiously. Like there is like, for example, there is a word called, I heard this in a lecture, where there's a word called ajaha, and then the way you say the ajaha, one can mean goat and the another meaning is Brahma. But the way you accent the word ajaha means what whom you're referring to, and if you say it wrong, then the whole like mantra is going to be messed up. And we all know that mantras are like, they are potent. There is also the story of Vritasura, where King Twashtu, he mispronounces he loftily pronounces Indrakshatru. So what happens is, instead of creating a son who will slay Indra because of his mispronunciation, he'll get a son who will be slain by Indra. So such are the potencies of such Vedic mantras. And we have been hearing about the capability of people who are in Kali Yuga. So we need more of Parivrajakacharyas. So Prabhupada says that there is more importance for people who can recite Mahabharata than who can recite Vedic mantras. So that's how important Parivrajakacharyas are. And Sutta Goswami is one such Parivrajakacharya. And he comes there to give knowledge to Parikshit, and through Parikshit, all of us are now getting to hear, listen, and realize about Srimad Bhagavatam.
So Mataji, just one question. So it should be Sukadev Goswami, right? Not Sutta Goswami in the slide?
Sorry. Yes, Prabhu, it should be okay. Shukadev Goswami.
No problem. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Okay. All right. So So now, where does Shukadev Goswami hear it from? So this whole parampara, Vyasadeva and Shukadev, they are from a glorious parampara. Even while reciting Vishnu Sahasranamam, we say Vyasam Vasishtan Aptaram Shakte Pautram Akalmasham Parasharat Majam Vande Shukatadim Taponidim. So it starts from Vasishta, Shakti, Vasishta Maharishi, Shakti Maharishi, Vyasar, Shukadev. So the whole lineage is like very transcendental lineage, very powerful lineage who can like um, convey the message or the essence of spiritual value. And what happens is Vyasadev. So Vyasadev has contributed like. Vyasadev is like the true well-wisher. Vyasadev and all of our Parivrajakacharyas, all of our Goswamis, all of our Acharyas, they are the true well-wishers and the true philanthropists because they try to do good for all the living beings. Even Maharaj Parikshit didn't just take care of people in his kingdom. He took care of animals also. He took care of all living beings. And so Vyasdev, um, the reason why he breaks down Vedas is that so that it's like people can get material benefits, they can recite and they can learn Vedas. So he compiles the Vedas into 4 sections. So Paila Rishi, he makes Paila Rishi the professor of Rig Veda. Then he makes Jaimini Rishi the professor of Samaveda, and then he makes I think Sumanta Maharishi is for Atharva Veda and Yajur Veda for Vaishampayana Rishi. And what happens is he segregates them, but for someone to recite Vedic mantra, they should be a Brahmana, and Brahmana is not just by being born in a caste, right? So there are two main conditions. One is they have to go through Garbhadharma. Okay, now I'm not able to remember the word. What is it, Prabhu? Garbhadana Samskaram.
Garbhadana Samskar, yeah.
Garbhadana Samskaram, yeah. Garbhadana Samskaram. And second one is they again go through Upanayanam or the second spiritual initiation. And that's why they are called as Dvijabandhus. They are twice born. Only after completing these 2 stages are they considered as Brahmanas. In purport, it's said that those who don't go through the stage but are still born in that same kin, they are called as friends of Brahmanas. They are not considered as Brahmanas. So what Vedavyasa does is he then compiles itihasas and Upanishads so that less qualified people can also like read and benefit from it. So he has now given us Vedas, and they are like Vedas are like they form the foundation of what transcendental realization contains. And then he gives the essence of Vedas, which are assimilated systematically in stories such as Mahabharata and other Upanishads. And basically these we classify these as Itihasa Puranas. And even then Vedavyasa is not feeling satisfied. And why is he not feeling satisfied is because of his realization, he's a Trikalanjani. So he's able to see the past, present, and future. And by looking at the future, he has seen that there are abnormalities that are coming in Kali Yuga. So he's seeing that the duration of one's life is less. And then we are unable to engage ourselves in spiritual development. Memory power is less. And then there is a lot of impatience, and the land is not fertile anymore. And Prabhupada also writes that transcendentalists are not welcome anymore. So once we go through the list, we can literally put a tick to like everything. And this is not all. There is also statements about the politicians or the rulers of the land plundering, and then people being very hypocritical. So there are all of these clues where we can see that where Vedavyasa observes these abnormalities, and he's very dissatisfied because he's not able to understand why this is happening. Like I have made so many compilations, and I've given them, I've assimilated them for Brahmanas, for non-Brahmanas. Even then there is this dissatisfaction. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport that Krishna manifests that dissatisfaction. And what happens is, because Vedavyasa wrote this to purify people's occupation, and he can see that in future Kali Yuga is going to be gore, and this is not going to happen. He's confused, and then he starts meditating in the banks of river Saraswati, and then he realizes, and then he has this realization, oh, maybe I didn't specifically point out devotional service. Could that be the case? And then the moment he has his realization, and the moment he's pondering over this, Narada Muni enters. One of the like I'm very excited for the next session, because it's going to talk about Narada Muni and then his background and what message and how he guides Vedavyasa. So Narada Muni ends up becoming Vedavyasa's spiritual master, and he guides him from then on. And Narada Muni, in this episode, Narada Muni confirms his suspicion. He says, yes, you didn't specifically point out the word devotional service. And now, what are some of my realizations? Like I said, this chapter was, I think, especially Maharaj Parikshit's realization hit me really hard. And especially since COVID, and especially since last year, a lot of people who I know personally, they have left this world. And even last week, I don't know how many of you know, but Hansapriya Mataji's mother, Haripriya Mataji, she's one of the most senior devotees. She passed away, and we saw her pass away for over a month. For over a month, we visited her, and and she was just completely soaked in Krishna consciousness, like completely, like till her last breath, she was like listening to either chanting or kirtan or lecture, something. Or the moment she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, her family arranged for this, and it was just, and the whole atmosphere was just. And even when we went and saw her, like, there were like multiple organ failure, and she was still like in complete service of like her Thakurji. And it was, and in other cases in my own family, my granddad passed away and my aunt passed away, leaving behind 2 teenagers, and just a lot of people. And then I it just really hit me hard, like how fleeting can one's life be, even in terms of like, okay, right now I'm in California, and I have devotee association here, and I have devotee association through you guys, but who knows where I'll be tomorrow, and who knows what will happen to me. And if Maharaj Parikshit, who had nothing to complain about, he's coming from a glorious dynasty, and he was protected by the law when he was in his womb, and he was powerful, and everybody surrendered to him, and he was a great devotee and great householder. Like, he didn't misuse his power, and he was not misused. There was nothing, to me, there was nothing that looked wrong in Maharaj Parikshit's life. And then there is me, and I know how many things are wrong in my life, and it makes me really think hard, what is my position, and how am I progressing. And even if a minor disturbance happens, I just, there is a huge divergence, and by the time it takes for me to come back, and which is why Prabhupada and other acharyas, they have given us a systematic framework on how to get back. Yes, you are going to be hit. You are going to be hit, like how, like a boat without a rudder might sway away. But there is an anchor, and that anchor is going to bring the boat back to its shore. And that anchor is our sadhana. And as we keep consistently doing our sadhana, we're definitely going to have realizations. I'm pretty sure all of us who had this desire but unable to execute it, whenever we had the true desire and we were unable to execute, Krishna would have definitely manifested in some form, given us an anchor somewhere. And sometimes it's like, why me? Like, what did I do? Like, why did I get this mercy? So I would really like to remember my position in this world, and how I'm extremely insignificant, and how I should have like unflinching faith, because that might be the only thing that might save me, and praying for others as well. And the second realization is definitely uh, seeking qualified sources for advice. So here we see how Shaunaka Maharishi um, hears from Sutta Goswami. Um, and I'm pretty sure in our lives, in various aspects of our lives, so many people would have given us like various advices, and we can choose to listen or we can choose not to listen. But honestly, if we listen, we will be in my experience, we will be inspired by them in a positive way or a negative way. And and that's why even Prabhupada, in in his purports and all of his purports, he always warns about listening to, like, Mayavadis, or like just being very careful about whom we are listening to. And especially in terms of like spiritual advancement, it's really important for us to like listen uh, from the right resources. Yes, experimenting and listening to different philosophies, all of that, as seekers, that happens. I'm not against it, but I think once we come to a platform of understanding, once we know where our initial seed is, after that I think we should be careful, because just in this is just a very personal deep realization, so I hope no one minds. But it's like, even sometimes when we are like, yeah, he's a devotee, she's a devotee, like we start making these like devotee non-devotee discriminations. And sometimes it's I've seen a lot of like close-mindedness on that, because we are not being open to others, or like embrace others, and not unable to learn right qualities from others. And and by and by discriminating, we are already assuming that we know how to judge a good devotee and a bad devotee, which I think might be a dangerous assumption. We should leave that judgment to like to like senior devotees, or to like acharyas who are at a very realized platform. um, but and we should always be like, in Indian philosophies, we might have heard a lot about this hamsa bird. When and the quality of the bird is that it sucks the milk. If you give it if you it can be a myth, but the point being, when you give it milk and water mix, it has the capability to remove just the milk. And here milk signifies like good message, or like transcendental messages. So we should all be really careful about whom we are listening to, and not really get into any kind of groupisms. We don't need that, given that Kali is already like torturing us and tormenting us in like all aspects of life. We don't need to get into any kind of like groupisms. Like, I personally don't think it's necessary, until and unless there is someone who is wrong. Then we can seek the advice of a senior devotee and get the right course of action. And third one is, it's also something that I have realized deeply. um, krishna Krishna is the best friend. He is my best friend, and he's everyone's best friend. He's every living entity's best friend. Over the years, I've seen so many people who I would consider as my close kin and as my friends. Um, but then, like, everybody has changed. Every time my status changed, or if me as a person improved, it threatened them. And if me as a person came down in life, it made them joyous. And then I was questioning, wow, there's no one true. But then over the years, I've realized that Krishna is the only true well wisher, and he's a true friend. Like that, like, I mean, there are so many times even when I will ignore, not like even I will, but it's like I will ignore Krishna. And like a lot of instances, I might forget, get busy, I'll be like, Krishna, whatever, like, just chant to just get my rounds done. But then when something happens, and then I don't even have the face to look at Krishna and ask him anything, because I've not been like good to him. Even then, Krishna will intervene, and he will immediately like manifest his protection. And today, it struck a deep chord with me. Vaisheshika Maharaj, he shared a quote. I don't exactly remember the words, but it says, um, whenever there is adversity in your life, realize that that adversity is there just to make your life unattached, and just understand that adversity is making you a more realized person. And that just stuck a deep chord with me, because that's one way to look at adversity and not be dumbed down by it. Because anything can happen to us. Let anything happen. I know it's easy for me to say. It's super easy for me to say, but following is hard. But I really want to like pray to every one of you that just get this drill down deep, that whatever life gives you, like whatever happens, like good, bad, whatever, just understand that everything is like, it's like a speck of dust for Krishna. So he will handle it. It's not a big deal. Like nothing is a big deal. He will handle it. And guess what? All of us have Krishna as the best friend. So it's like I know the president. So it's like if somebody's refusing to give me a if somebody's refusing to like leave way to me, it's like, okay, you know what, I know the president. Like, why are you even like bothering me? We should have that kind of an attitude. Again, it's easy to say when one is going through the pain. It's hard. I understand that, and I go through that too. But this is what Prabhupada's advice to us is also, like, we systematically do our sadhana, and we deepen our realization. And we have seen it. We see all of our Maharajs, like, they don't, things happen to them too, but uh, they don't break down. They know how to get back, and they have been guiding like so many people. And they speak about this too. So it's not like, it's evident, like we are seeing it in a lot of like devotees also. Again, not to make devotee non-devotee in this context, I just mean those who have realized. um so Krishna is our best friend, and he definitely manifests like whatever. He's our true well-wisher, so everything is under his control. So there is nothing really, like, nothing can really go wrong, irrespective of whatever pain we feel. um yeah, and with that, I would like to conclude my session today. And I hope and if I had spoken anything out of my line, I seek your forgiveness. And thank you all for your time, and thank you, Gaurakumar, Prabhu, and Nityakeshwari Mataji, for giving me this opportunity.
Hare Krishna. So first of all, Mataji, this was so wonderful. I mean, I liked every sentence, every word that you spoke. And more importantly, I liked how you presented. This is exactly what I wanted, like sections by sections by sections, you summarize nicely. And then you had nice pointers, and you spoke about each point nicely, deeply. You gave individual examples within that particular thing. Like, for example, Twashta and Vitrasura, the example that you gave was like spot on. And everything, like how you introduced Sukadeva Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, Sutta Goswami, all the points, and so clearly, so crystal clear. I mean, it was wonderful. And the last but not least, your realizations were like really touched my heart. Like, especially when you said Krishna manifests his protection, and I always think of Krishna as my best friend. So that really, ultimately, that is all what we need. If we have deeply realized that, then one thing you said, Krishna somehow manifests his protection. I would strike out that somehow.
Right.
Krishna manifests his protection,
Right.
period, always.
Right.
So
Right, correct, Prabhu. Yeah, I was not sure if I had to put that somewhere, but I forgot to take it. But I agree 100%.
yes. And how your first point also, how everything is fleeting, and how, if we realize this, that even in our journey towards Krishna, it can be one line, but each of these lifetimes are like small dots in that lifetime. And we start thinking that this life is everything, and we start thinking about everything around us as everything, but it's nothing. It's just one small dot. That's what our lifetime is, actually one small dot. Like this, we have many dots connected to Krishna.
Yeah.
So thank you. And also the second one that you mentioned also is amazing. Seeking qualified sources for advice. So no groupism, amazing point again. And again, this classification of devotee, non-devotee, I totally agree with you. Like how when I spoke also, we should not be making these distinctions. It's actually harmful and dangerous for us, because once we start labeling someone, the potential that we can get from that person is completely removed.
Yeah.
So if I take a book or something and I say label that as bad, the potential that the book has to benefit us is completely cut off. even though there could be some potential in that book. So similarly, when we label people like that, whatever potential is there is also cut off. So I wanted to thank you for that as well. So wonderful. I just let others speak. But one thing I again want to reiterate is that this is exactly how I wanted all the slides to be, and the sections and things like this. For future speakers, we can follow this pattern. That will be great. Thank you, Mataji, again so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your realizations. Actually, like when you say it, and I know that you are, I mean, I'm not trying to like flatter or anything, but when I know that you are realized, and when you iterated, it gives me more confidence that, okay, you know, it's like, you know, I can think about it this way. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Jitendra Prabhu, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lekha Mataji. I agree with each and every point that Gaur Kumar Prabhu made. Very systematic, very well thought, and very well presented. And yeah, I mean, you as Prabhuji mentioned, of course, that you cross-quoted, you took examples, and that is very amazing. It really helps drive the point home. And then you also, the best part was your personal realizations. Those were like amazing. It's one thing what the Shastras say, but another thing how we can understand how that translates into our lives. I guess that is the most important thing, and how we think that it translates into our life, and how we live according to that, according to our interpretation, that will ultimately define whether we've and that actually those three things cover everything, like going to the correct authority. If we go to the correct authority, then our interpretation of what the Shastric statement is will also be in line with what it is to be, right? So yeah, amazing points, and I really hope to learn from your style of presentation today. And yeah, thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was a really nice summary. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. This was such a wonderful class. I really enjoyed every aspect of the class. You know, just as Gaur Kumar Prabhu said, and Jitendra Prabhu said, you summarized the chapter so nicely, and your realizations were really, really nice, and especially the one about adversity. That every adversity is an opportunity. You know, it's almost, you know, it's bringing us closer to Krishna, and so that reminded me of Kunti Maharani's prayers.
Yeah.
And so it was such a wonderful class, and you know, I loved every point that you made.
Thank you.
And yeah, and I'm also looking forward to next week for you know, the Narada story. So that's one of my favorites as well. So and even you know that this about Sukdev Goswami walking away as a child. You know, I've heard this, and I thought I'll ask you or maybe Gaur Kumar Prabhu. I've heard that when he came out of the womb, he was already realized, and is that true? I've heard that he was already realized.
He was already realized, and actually he goes to the forest. He was an impersonalist. Actually, he was an impersonalist. He goes to the forest, and Vyasadeva is completely bewildered. How can I get him back? That's so he starts thinking, how can I get him back? Then he sends two of his disciples to chant two verses of the Bhagavatam. And when his son Sukadeva Goswami is meditating somewhere on Brahman, he listens to this beautiful narrations of Krishna. And when he hears that, he thinks, what am I meditating on? This is so wonderful. I have to find out who these people are. So he goes and meets the two disciples, and he asks them, where is this book from? What is this about? Who is this person that you're talking about? So then they say that this is about Krishna. And where did you get this from? We got this from Vyasadeva. And then he goes to his father, and then he gets the whole Bhagavatam. That's the complete story, Prabhu. I can send you the reference.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for narrating that too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hari Bol, Lekha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the amazing class. I think everyone totally, they beautifully explained and how amazing the class was. And the best part was when you were delivering. And I think I told you the same thing on someone else's class, that you had faith in what you're saying, and you had so much. The way you delivered was with so much of dedication that okay, this is how it is. And I loved how you sort of reminded us of Haripriya Mataji's example and how you related with Maharaj Parikshit, so that it's again an example of how we can learn from the Bhagavatam and apply it in our lives. So I just loved all the cross connections you made, and definitely a beautiful class. Thank you, Haribol.
Thank you, Vrinda. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lekha. It
Hare
is
Krishna,
really,
Mataji.
really a wonderful class. I was just taking notes, and I was like, mesmerized with the class. I just felt like I just want to listen. I don't want to take notes now. I just want to listen. But it was very beautiful. Especially, I'm sorry to hear about the, many people in your family and your friends passed away. Very sorry to hear that. Yes, it's a wonderful realization of how you compared yourself with Maharaj Parikshit had nothing to complain, and also how insignificant and that makes us feel. And you also talked about anchor, which is very, very, very important point, where if life is definitely full of material miseries, but if you don't have an anchor, like you mentioned, sadhana or anything that we can hold on to, then it becomes we will just get drowned. And very nicely said. And I just for some reason I didn't write somehow Krishna somehow manifests in protection. I actually wrote only Krishna manifests his protection. I know that somehow was from your side, right? Like in spite of me being somehow like this, Krishna manifests. That's how I read it.
Yeah, it was like, the way I thought about it was like, again, not to brag, but I feel like I'm the most unqualified, because it's like I'm like, why is Krishna even doing this? Sometimes I don't even like complain, because I'm like, you know what, I don't even I don't even meet the bar for like complaining. Like, so then, so that's what I meant by somehow. But I was not super comfortable with that word, but I was like, but I forgot to like change it, so I just let it.
No, thank you so much again for a wonderful class.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
I want to let her roommate speak, Sindhu Kanya Mataji or Vinay Prabhu. I guess. Okay.
No dinner for them tonight.
Not enough for them tonight. Perfect. So thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can
Hare
you
Krishna,
hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Haribol Lekha, that was a really wonderful class. I really saw how you were preparing for this class, and it really shows in the way you presented, and just your connections to all the points that you made, all the examples that you give, really speak to who you are and what you actually believe in, like the others said. One, I guess, question I had, or I guess it's kind of just a point I wanted to put out there, is um, like the point you mentioned about how devotees kind of end up discriminating between devotees and non-devotees. So I've always found it really hard to understand, because sometimes as devotees, we do have to discriminate in order to keep up with the principles that we follow, like, for example, not eating out, only eating prasadam, or, following the regulative principles, or, doing our sadhana. So like in those terms, sometimes you do have to discriminate between who's a devotee and non-devotee in order to associate with those people. For example, you might not associate so much with someone that's not a devotee because your lifestyle is different from theirs. So, I mean, I guess, how do we, live a dual life? Not a dual life, but how do we live a spiritual life while, not discriminating against people who might not be yet practicing a spiritual life?
Right. So I have a couple of viewpoints on that, but others, please feel free to correct or weigh in. So by discrimination, I mean, so there is one thing about discrimination and there's one thing about association. So association, yeah, we should have the right association. And the association is the one that defines our, like, what do we think about a lot, or like our lifestyle in general, like what our sadhana, all of that. But by discrimination, I mean, like really not being judgmental about someone, because like most of us who have come on into Krishna consciousness, we were at one stage, we were, quote unquote non-devotees, or like quote unquote not living the right devotional lifestyle. So if someone showed their mercy, and then that's how, like, for most of us, for most of them who were born into the family, maybe they wouldn't have realized that much. But for me, um I was an atheist like throughout my teenager, although my dad was, he's a very staunch Vaishnava, and I didn't listen to my dad. I was an atheist, and then I was into different philosophies for like a year. And then by mercy, I would say by the mercy of my dad and mercy of other devotees, because they didn't judge me for me being a critic or me being a hot-headed teenager, they showed their mercy, and that's how I got into or started knowing about Krishna and started getting into Krishna consciousness. So we don't so that's how we should, like, in my opinion, that's how we should be. We should not be like discriminatory in that sense. But in terms of association, yes, we need to like associate. But I've observed, this is just my observation again, so hope it's not like offending anyone, but even in terms of like those, sometimes we generally classify as devotees, I've seen that, like, we all get together, and then there's nothing really like spiritual or transcendental like going on. Sometimes we all get to a group and do something that's not like really related or in line. So even in association of devotees, we should all, like, try to talk more about like spiritual thoughts, like, discuss more, question more, ask more, feel more, read more. But and again, about all the groupisms that Gaur Kumar Prabhu was mentioning about in a couple of his classes ago, and what we saw earlier, like, again, it's like, even when we do something like, like my Maharaj is bigger than us, or this is how you should do, like, um I'm from this quality, I possess these qualities, and I come from this Maharaj group, from this temple, like, we are fame, like, even those kinds of things are very harmful and dangerous for us. So we should be very careful about when we are, and even when we are being this, even when you like talk to someone who's not really like, who doesn't know much about like Krishna or anything for the moment, it's like you can still learn a lot of qualities, like even if you look at, like, maybe for example, let's just take Elon Musk. You can still learn a lot of good qualities from him, and you can take those qualities and apply to, to better your life. But when I already start hating Elon Musk because he's not, he's not aware of Krishna, then I'm ignoring, like Gaur Kumar Prabhu said, I'm ignoring all the good qualities, that, like, the perseverance that Elon Musk has, even when nobody trusts in him. It blows my mind, and I'm like, okay, if I had that kind of perseverance, maybe I would have been a much better person now. But if I
So
already,
I guess my question was, maybe I phrased my question wrong, but I think it was like what you said is like really true, and I support that 100%. But I guess what I was asking more of was, because not because we're intentionally trying to outcast, a certain group of people or people that are not devotees, but it's like unintentionally you end up making choices that may not be normal for other people. Like, so, like, for example, if you're going out, if all your coworkers are going out for dinner or whatever, or going to the bar, you can't you can't go. Or, I mean, it's most of the time, I don't want to go, but if I
yeah,
don't go, then they think that I'm discriminating against them because I think I'm like more
right,
superior than they are
right,
because I don't do what they
right,
do. So it's kind of like the other party kind of thinks that
right,
you are discriminating, even though it's just you're trying to follow your practice. So like
right,
how to deal with
true,
that kind of a situation where you know the more you
true,
get in, like when we're with devotees, it's not a problem. But then, I feel like in the past, 6 months or so, I've encountered a lot of situations where I'm with a lot of non-devotees, and that's why this is like striking me
Right.
so much about like, you
Right.
know,
Right.
I don't want them to think that I'm judging them or discriminating against them, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like, I don't
Yeah.
want them to think that I'm just going to do whatever they want me to do.
Right. Right. Yeah. So personally for me, the way I handle that situation is like I just try to categorize situation as non-adjustable versus adjustable. If there is somewhere where I can adjust, I will, because even in family, I am pretty sure like most of us have phases where even in our family we start getting fights because they are like, oh, you know, you are being a fanatic, and then I'm like, no, I'm just trying, I'm not trying to be. So I resonate with you on that. So if so I just the way it does seem to work for me is that if it's like family or like relations that I really like value, then I try to like see if I can work around and try to like compromise, or rather try to like, if there is a soft landing spot somewhere. And if it's like coworkers and stuff, I just make up to them. Like if I'm not going to that, then what I do is like I try to get a plan an activity where I enjoy and I can also make them enjoy. So that's how I've been handling my coworkers, and you know, trying to like not um offend them or make them. And to me, another reason why I do that is because I don't want them to like think that Krishna consciousness is like very it's a very stark closed community and boring life. Like, so I just try to like plan an activity or do something where they'll also be happy and I'll also be happy. And when it comes to family, I do sometimes like adjust or blend in a lot, just because I don't want to create that roughness or kind of like try to like spark their hatred and like spirituality and stuff. And there's a personal example that I've seen, because in my own close families, because so my dad, he's a very serious devotee, and sometimes he's very serious and very strong that some of the relatives are very close, my own like sibling, like sometimes he's like moving away, and to me that's like an alarm bell, and I'm like, I don't want that to happen. So I try to like blend in a bit, but maybe others can, maybe Gautama, Prabhu, Nitya, like you guys probably know better solution.
I think through this discussion, I think we understood both perspectives. I think Sindhu Kanya Mataji is also right in one sense, and Lekha Mataji is also right. And we have to, at some points in our lives, clearly discriminate who are these people who are God conscious and who are these people who are not so God conscious, or who are those people who are so materially attached and not trying to elevate their consciousness. So I think we have to do that. And even in the three categories of devotees, in the Uttama Adhikari stage, they are the ones who don't discriminate at all, So it is said that when one is at the Uttama Adhikari platform, that person cannot preach, because that person sees only Krishna everywhere. So whatever anybody is doing, that person sees Krishna in them, and he's just not able to preach. So an Uttama Adhikari has to come to the Madhyam Adhikari platform, where he can see the discrimination, and he shows compassion towards those who are not God conscious. And then he tries to elevate them. So it is okay. So even Madhyam Adhikaris do that, but they do it in a positive way. They show compassion, is what I'm trying to say. So it is necessary sometimes, and we have to pray to Krishna ultimately, to our best friend ultimately, to give us the intelligence and the right association. As Lekha Mataji also mentioned, we should reveal our heart, open our minds, everyone, to these kinds of people who will elevate our consciousness, who will give us the right way or path to go closer to Krishna. So that is my answer. So anyone else? Jitendra Prabhu, Nitya, anyone? Anything else? I mean, this is a wonderful discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's a wonderful conversation, because this is something that I go through all the time as well. You know, because of work, once in a while I have to go to work dinners. Next week, for example, I have to go to a work dinner, and all my colleagues are going to be there. You know, it doesn't look nice if I'm not there, but I completely hear your point. I understand both sides of the thing. You know, I'll just give you an example. You know, before I became aware of Krishna consciousness, you know, I had a group of friends. I still have those same group of friends, and some of them are extremely close. You know, one of them is like almost like a brother to me, and we used to always go out to eat. about once a month or so, and I've stopped doing that. And luckily, COVID also happened, and so there was no pressure. So, but now that COVID is eased, he's been calling me to say, let's go out to eat. So I tell him, maybe once I'll go, but then I found a restaurant which serves Swaminarayan food, and I tell him, okay, we'll go there, and there I quietly chant, a couple of Mahamantras, and I eat because I don't want to upset him by not going.
Wonderful example, Prabhu, like how you adjust. That's what Lekha Mataji was also mentioning. Sometimes you have to adjust. And then in the discussions that you have with your friend also, you can talk about where you are at and what you're doing in your life and so on. And yeah, you don't have to just talk about that. Of course, you must relate to that person also, but then have this balance.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Yes.
Jitendra Prabhu, go ahead.
One thing that I like to add is, yeah, I mean, all of us have been in such situations. I'm pretty sure all of us. And when we discriminate for sure, because we have to discriminate on the level of sadhana bhakti that we are all practicing. It is buddhi or discrimination that helps us progress. This is what Jiva Goswami says. And as Prabhuji mentioned, Gaur Kumar Prabhu, that on the Uttama level, it's the taste, it's the rasa. That taste is what Raganuga platform is what we call, right? That taste is what pushes one towards Krishna. But in our case, it's buddhi, because we are sadhakas. We have not yet reached, at least I haven't yet reached that platform where I have taste, right? So yes, we have to discriminate, but when we discriminate, I guess the one thing that at least over the years, I have come to think like that, and I still don't think like that, but I should be thinking. We discriminate, but we discriminate not in the sense of being proud and labeling them, but we discriminate in the sense of whether it is helpful for me to progress towards Krishna through those things, or to be more specific, whether I am capable of progressing towards Krishna even though I associate with these people, whether I am capable. So now the focus has shifted from them being devotees or non-devotees to my ability or inability. So that will make me, so like for example, and most of the cases when like I'll give you my brother's example. I've told this to many devotees here, they know. So my brother is completely averse to Krishna consciousness and mainly to ISKCON. And then when over the years, now that I look back, one of the reasons for his aversion is my behavior. I was taught that you should discriminate between devotees and non-devotees, and I took that instruction and I would like smirk at him. I would smirk at him, and that smile, one side smile, as if you're very proud you're practicing something. No, that, and then was I discriminating? Yes, I was discriminating. But was it helping my cause to go closer to Krishna? Definitely not. Right? Instead of that, instead of smirking at him, if I would have understood that, yes, my brother is not Krishna conscious in the way we define Krishna conscious. So let me just not, agitate him unnecessarily. Let me be humble even before him. And I think if I would have done that in retrospect, I think he would have been much more favorable. Right. So the discrimination, I guess it's not like out of pride that we do, but it's more out of my inability to sustain my own Krishna consciousness despite associating with such people. And I guess that's a very good middle path that Krishna and Prabhu takes, that, kind of take a middle path. You don't overtly, go into their things, but kind of.
So Nitya is also saying, I think she's putting Radha to sleep. So I'm just going to read her answer. I think Krishna consciousness is just about don't eat and don't do. Or is not, sorry, Krishna consciousness is not just about don't eat and don't do. We can also see positivity, show that our behavior is also Krishna conscious, show kindness, show compassion, gratitude, being helpful to everyone, being humble, etc. When others see us having such qualities, the don'ts that we express would be taken more welcomingly and acceptingly, rather than becoming looked down upon as being a cultish behavior. My point is, show more adds than deletes. Amazing. Thank you. Does this answer your question, Mataji? Sindhu Kanya Mataji?
Yeah, that was way more than I expected to understand. So thank you everyone for all the points, and I think I'll start implementing that. And like Prabhu said, like try to take a middle ground, not go too extreme, and like Mataji said, focus on the positives, because it's not just about our image, it's about the image of ISKCON too. If we don't want people thinking that ISKCON is just don't do this, don't do that.
Yes.
If you don't chant, you're screwed. Like it's not. It doesn't boil down to those negatives. So yeah, I'll implement those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So thank you, everyone. I just want to announce a few things here. So first announcement is that Chaitanya Sharan Prabhu, he's actually visiting US, and he'll be here from April 14th, less than a month from now, actually. And the good news is that he'll also be visiting ISV, Lekha Mataji, Sindhukanya Mataji, Vinay Prabhu. So he'll be in ISV also, and he's going to spend 1 week in each place. He's visiting only 6 cities, and he's going to stay 1 week in each place, and he'll go back at the end of May. So that's one thing. Second thing is Dwarkadish Prabhu and Vishaka Mataji, Vishaka Priya Mataji, who are like senior counselors in Chowpatty, Mumbai. They are also coming here, and they'll also be speaking to all of us in this Sangha in May. So I will announce the dates later, but they're also coming here. They're landing on May 4th, I believe. May 4th. I'll let you know the final confirmed dates. So that's that. So we are entering the Swami season, which means a lot of senior devotees, sannyasis, everyone will start coming back, traveling. Hopefully this variant BA2 doesn't spread too much. Already I'm hearing that there are more infections and so on. So let's hope that it goes away soon. The next announcement that I wanted to make is, so it's been about 8 months since we got Krishna House, and the programs have been going really, really well. Every Saturday now, because of the efforts of Jitendra Prabhu, Karan Prabhu, Nitya, and now Vrinda Mataji are also helping. So with all the efforts, it is really flourishing. We are getting about 25 students every Saturday, like completely new students, and slowly but surely we have started taking them to the temple also. So tomorrow is Gaur Purnima, and many students will be joining us there also. So it's been going really well. So somehow by Krishna's mercy, tomorrow we will be welcoming Gaur Nitai deities at Krishna House. So we are very happy, and it just happened actually. Sukawa Mataji came to our house and she gave us these deities, and we're thinking what to do, and then we thought of Krishna House, and so it's perfect that how it happened. So tomorrow we'll be welcoming Gaur Nitai deities there. And the last announcement is next week. I know many of you are eager to hear Karan Prabhu, but he's been very busy, and he's also, there's one event that's happening at Bhakti Center next week, next Wednesday. One of our devotees is getting engaged. So we will be canceling next week, or I could talk about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll see, one of the two. We'll do one of the two, but I will keep you posted as well. So next week, definitely we won't have the Bhagavatam class. We will have something else, or we'll cancel. And yeah, that's about it. So thank you all so much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Her Grace Lekha Mataji ki jai. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.